Jordan Poole revenge game last night in San Francisco. That worked out about as well as you could hope for most Warrior fans, right? Poole looks good, gets his points, but ultimately comes up short, and the Warriors get a win against a team with 6 wins, right? Like that would have been the new worst loss of the year probably, even though we had injuries, right? But let's focus on Jordan Poole here and where he's at now. First and foremost, I'm happy that he's back on the trajectory that he had been on, right? Because it looked like last year, let's be real, it was like moments where it was like, hey, is he never gonna be the same after the incident, right? But he's gotten back on track and he's putting up big numbers efficiently on a bad team, a 6-win team. Now, to me, some people will consider this like an insult, and we all have our different views of guys. On a good team, Jordan Poole is a 6-man. He's a third guard who comes in, lights it up, gives you the scoring punch that you need. And the reason why I don't think he is a lead guard for a good team, it's not skill, but it's temperament, it's decision-making. And I think you saw some of that down the stretch of last night's game, as well as the defensive end, right? That's still a real issue. But I'm glad that he's back on the trajectory and he's having a good season. And I think also importantly, he's vibing with the young guys on this Wizards team. The Wizards revamped their roster, and I like their young players. Bud Carrington, Keyshawn George, Sarr, who we can talk about here in a minute, moves well. I'll say that much, right? But, it seems like he's happy there. Even though they're not winning, he's back on that trajectory. But, I think a lot of people blame the front office or upset with the front office for how it all went down. To me, ultimately, this is on Draymond. It's on Draymond. Because we've done a little bit of revisionist history where they're like, I can't believe they traded. Initially, if you remember, Mike Dunleavy, was Bob still there? Yeah, Bob was still there, but Dunleavy, they chose Poole, right? Like within the 7 days of the incident, they extended Poole and Wiggins. And it was kind of like a signal of like, all right, we're gonna rock with the young guys moving forward. But then that final year played out, and it was very clear like Poole couldn't get over it. Right. And I think if Poole had looked like the same player in that final year, I truly believe they would have considered moving Draymond. Once they realized those two can't be on the same team any longer, right? They may have moved off Draymond had Poole looked like the same player, but he didn't. And I think the biggest issue defensively, it was disrespectful. He was dogging it to the point of disrespect defensively that final year as a Warrior. And so they had to make a move. Now, where I think you can be upset with the front office is what they ultimately got for him, right? Chris Paul, and then basically clearing cap space. And in hindsight, it's like, dang, could you got a young player? Could you got something more substantial for the big picture, right? I understand that that's where I think the front office deserves some blame, but ultimately, to me, it's still on Draymond. I know he really is sorry, right? But it is on Draymond. That's the next subject here. What Draymond plays like 90 seconds, limps off the floor with the calf issue. But you remember, was it last year or was it the year before? I think it was 2 years ago. It started with the calf and somehow it's connected to the back because the knee bone's connected to the hip bone and all that, right? And so it's kind of alarming. It's spooky, and it seems like this may be a long-term issue. Like there's a reality that Draymond might just be cooked, like physically. And there's no shame in it. Really, we don't discuss it enough. Like, what he has done throughout his career at his size is insane. And so I say that to say it wouldn't be shocking if his body is breaking down at 33, 34 years old. His playing style and what he's been able to do and all those runs to the finals, like it's not surprising. However, at this point, there is an argument, or there is at least some interest in seeing this team without Draymond, right? In the past, it was like, well, if Draymond's not playing, then, we're screwed. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case anymore, given the depth on this team, even though they're super injured, but allowing more oxygen in the room, right? And I think last night was a perfect example offensively. Like Steph, look, let's be honest, he didn't look like he wanted to play last night. Right? I think maybe the only little bit of motivation Steph had last night was, I'm not trying to let Jordan show me up. I'll never hear the end of it, right? So he had that motivation, but Steph didn't look good. The numbers were all right at the end of the day because of how bad Washington's defense was, but it wasn't a good Steph game. But they didn't force the issue to Steph, even though he was struggling, right? Andrew Wiggins, 31, 11, and 4. And he officially has a go-to move. It's that left shoulder bunny. He seems to get to it whenever he wants, and they're starting to empower it and go to it more often. But my point being is, if Draymond plays in that game, I'm not sure Wiggins has that 31-point night because Draymond probably hunting and forcing the ball to Steph more than he should on a night where Steph didn't have it going. And without Draymond kind of holding the offense hostage and probably overforcing the ball to Steph, you get the big night from Wiggins. You get a 20-point night from Dennis Schroeder. Moses Moody is getting an opportunity at the 4 spot for the second game, and it continues to be intriguing, right? Let's talk about Moses here for a second because, the foot speed, the lateral foot speed, we've been talking about it since he's been in Golden State. It is what it is. It's not something you can really work on. Your quickness is your quickness. Right now, you can work on angles and distance managing. But if the foot speed isn't there, the thing that sticks out with Moody is his length, right? He has a 7-foot wingspan. And last night, what I liked seeing him defensively is, one, Washington, outside of Jordan Poole, they're all big kind of forward-sized players. So there wasn't a ton of like super twitchy guys that he had to stay in front of, but he's disrupting the dribble with his length, keeping distance and kind of just reaching because he can poke the ball from a distance that guys aren't accustomed to. And so you saw him do that a couple times, right? But then offensively, when he is the 4 and there's those cross matchups, we've talked about the dip and him being able to get his shot off. So it's opening up those windows. But when he got downhill, that's what excited me was it's kind of been a running joke on my Patreon where it's like, who does Moses think he is when he goes to the rim, right? He attacks the rim like he's Kuminga, like he's like prime Vince Carter sometimes. You're like, whoa, Mo, and last night, it was very clear to me that he had looked at some tape and the team had showed him some tape of like, hey, dude, you can't vertically finish over the top of guys in this league like that. Maybe in high school, right? But there's too many big athletes for you to just try to dunk on people. And so you saw him jump into the body, show the ball, and do the up and under, all right? Get the contact, show it, and then scoop. And he had, what do you have, the and one? He had like 2 or 3 finishes like that. And so that's the way for Moses moving forward as far as him finishing more efficiently downhill. But the other thing that was intriguing was the foot replace or the hop. People call it different things, right? The footwork when you catch and shoot. Moses usually takes a 1-2 step, right? Or he'll keep his pivot foot down and then he'll take the step and then comes the dip. He hit a 3 last night in the second half in the corner where he hit the foot replace in the hop and he shot it over Keyshawn George, who's like 6'8", lanky, quick defender. And I was like, aha, I don't even know why I hadn't thought of that. Where if he can find more ways to get into the hop in the foot replace on the catch and shoot, it's going to speed up that dip and it's going to speed up his release and allow him to get off shots in tighter windows. Now, the issue with the foot replace, AKA hop, is the pass has to be in your shot pocket. It's very difficult to catch it out of your pocket and get into that. Now you have to take a step and then hop, right? But if he's at a standstill, he's in the corner, or he's spotted up and the pass is on target, I think that foot replacer and that hop as the ball's coming to him is going to allow him to shoot the ball quicker. And so I'm intrigued with the Moses Moody minutes at the 4, and it looks like he's going to get more of them when you consider what the Draymond situation, slow-mo's hamstring, right? And this is what the Warriors have to do. They have to find the opportunity in the misfortune of all these injuries. And I don't think it's sustainable for a month, but for a week or two here, I think that these guys in these new roles with these new opportunities, I think that they can do better than you would imagine. Now, how about the 2-headed monster at the center position last night? Trace Jackson, Kevon Looney. I have the stats for you. You want to know what those stats were combined? 28 rebounds, 16 points, and 4 blocks. And Trace continues to gobble up rebounds of late. I think he's playing with a little more juice, a little more energy. Maybe that's because Looney's back in the rotation and it's like, hey, you may not play. Like, we can cut your minutes even more, right? But I think that not only is he staying down defensively, not hunting as many blocks, but you're also seeing him start to learn the dark arts of rebounding from Kevon on the offensive side, where you're all boxed out, right? The defense has the inside position, and you just slowly start to nudge them under the basket. There's so many 3-pointers being taken. A lot of the time, it's a long rebound, right? Looney's a master of pinning his guy under the rim and then reaching and getting the long rebound, and you're starting to see Trace do that, right? I think as far as the finishing goes for him, and this is, I broke this down in today's breakdown, link will be in the description. He has to understand that he doesn't have to finish all in one motion when he's on the roller and he gets the ball downhill, right? It doesn't have to be catch and go right up, right? He can catch, come to a jump stop, right? The Looney special, pump fake, right? A pump fake would be great, but it doesn't have to be all in one motion. I think that is hurting those percentages at the rim, but you can't complain about that two-headed monster in the contributions that they've had in this last week, right? I know we're all eyeing a center and the Warriors are on the hunt for a stretch big. I'm not saying they shouldn't be anymore, but the production from those two this last week, I think we have to acknowledge it's been really good. But I already know what a lot of you are going to say, right? Hey, it was the Wizards and we almost lost. Like we struggled to beat the Wizards. I hear you. I didn't like the feel of the game all the way up till probably like midway through the third quarter. I was like, dude, this is headed to disaster, right? And they hit 22 of 48 threes. But ultimately, when you look at Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, why they can't be the leaders of a team, defensively, that team is so bad. And that's what allowed Steph to have better numbers than probably he played. What did he finish with 26 points? He had 9 in that fourth quarter, where their pick and roll coverage, Alex Sarr, his pick and roll defense is diabolically bad. I don't know what they're doing. And then you've got Kuzma and Poole with the Spider-Man meme defensively. They're just looking, they're like, which way, right? And so I think part of being able to get away with the bad Steph night was the bad Wizards team in their defense, right? But you got contributions from everybody else. But Sarr, listen, the number 2 pick out of France, watching him in Summer League, I was like, dude, this might be a miss. I didn't like his temperament. I didn't like his motor. He was shooting like 10%. But, I think he's starting to get comfortable. He's a young dude, raw, big man. He's fluid. I like the way he moves up and down the court, and he's blocking shots at the rim. But again, the pick and roll coverage, that's today's NBA. Like, that's cool that you can block guys that challenge you at the rim. But if you don't understand pick and roll coverages, it's going to be hard to put you out there when you're trying to win games. But the Wizards not really trying to win games, right? But his shot, it passes the eye test. Like, I'm intrigued. I like their young pieces. Bud Carrington, Keyshawn, George, Kubali, right? But again, I'm not sure what they do with Kuzma and Poole. I'd be very curious to see what Poole looked like on that Nuggets team. Wouldn't be good for us in the West or anybody, right? But I still think that ultimately will be his role when he finds himself on a winning team. Kuzma, he looks high out there. Like, Kuzma's just a space cadet. I wonder what he would look like if he were on the Mavericks or if someone went and got him. But I'm starting to get kind of cool feet on Kuzma, watching him play last night, even though he had that big fourth quarter. But they get the win. Martin Luther King Day game against the Celtics, who it feels like they owe us one. Not just for the finals in 22, but we went in there and kind of stole one in Boston early in the season, right? So that's going to be a tough one. Steph, I guess I forgot to mention the ankle roll at the end of this. He downplayed it, said he's good, he's ready to go. It didn't look too bad. But at this point, all that scar tissue in his ankles, it's hard to call, right? So I don't think any of us would be surprised if you turn on the game tomorrow afternoon. It's an early start, by the way. But if you turn it on and the starting lineup is, Schroeder, Buddy, Moses, Wiggins, and Trace, right? And so that's tough against the Celtics team, but they've got to find a way to take advantage of this homestand, 8 of the next 9 at home, and find a way to keep their head above water until we get a healthy roster. But I'll leave you with a positive prediction I'll even tell you my train of thought with this. When we were playing the Suns a couple weeks ago, Royce O'Neal rolled his ankle as bad as you could. His ankle bone touched the earth. It was bad. And I remember in my breakdown saying, like, Royce is like 32. I was like, that's going to bother him the rest of the year. Like, that's a 6 to 8 week ankle roll, right? And then I turn on the Suns like 2 weeks later and Royce O'Neal's hitting dagger threes. Now, I get everyone's ankles are different, and we've talked about that before, but it just popped in my head like, Kuminga's going to be ready. When this 3-week evaluation comes up, I suspect Kuminga will be good to go. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.